Good morning, LinkedIn. Welcome to Let's Build Daily. I am your host, Chris Carolin. Gonna have some fun, hopefully, today. Unboxing the new HubSpot podcast tool, which you can see is in beta. Came out with Content Hub back in April, and you can get to it through the content navigation. And it is available at Content Hub Pro level. Looking at this guardrail that we see right away, reach your audience with a podcast show. Drive traffic and conversions by offering valuable content to your customers. Upload podcast recordings or use AI tools to generate audio and metadata. Host in HubSpot and share with your audience using popular podcast distribution services. Set up a podcast show to start creating podcast episodes within it. So, a little bit of the why here. And before we dive in, reaching your audience is what we're trying to do here, and understanding that people intake information differently, preferentially, but also, for me, I need to listen to an audiobook or a podcast when I'm doing something else that doesn't require my thought, like walking or working out or on the road. There's a big market for that. People are listening to podcasts more and more. And if you do a search, you might be surprised how many already exist in your space, even in the industrial world. I've been impressed with, the scrap community specifically since 2019, 2020. They've had, quite a few pop up for scrap metal recyclers in the recycling industry. So I don't think there's a lot of industries yet untouched by podcasts, but and that's why we're here. That's why HubSpot is adding it to the mix. But to dive deeper into the goal, again, before I click this orange button, part of why I've got an hour today. I don't know how long this is going to take because I haven't gone through it. But again, strategy-wise, you have to think of podcasts as another form of content, a way to get your message in the ears, in this case, or eyes in some cases, like, Spotify can do videos now. All this regular content is a mechanism to send your message out over and over and over, either via, doing, small keynotes or topic breakdowns yourself, interviewing people on your show. And it's just a new format, right? And it can serve any point in the journey. So while we mentioned driving traffic and conversions here, often starting with your customer base and, helping them understand, how to get more value out of the product, how others are getting value out of the product is a good place to start generating valuable conversations, because that's really the key. Like, we want to reach our audience, with valuable content throughout this whole journey. And it's a daunting task, right? Which is why, HubSpot's providing a tool like this. But if you don't have the strategy up front, or you're not thinking about this up front, this all sounds well and good. And it's like, okay, we're going to get somebody on a recording or on a video, and then we break it all up, and then it all, takes care of itself. Well, this process actually is usually the limiting factor. I usually don't have a hard time getting somebody to share the knowledge that they have for any amount of time, whether it be 15 minutes or an hour, right? But the process and project management of this piece is what we're trying to address here. And the tools and the knowledge of this up front is what really drives success here. Uh, you know, and with this kind of process, with the refined process, with an efficient process, this is what makes, things like this possible. Like you see, you're like, okay, I got to be top of mind. I got to have a bunch of content in a bunch of places about a bunch of stuff. And I'm hearing that I need series, I need educational, I need infotainment. There's no way in the world that I can do that, right? Well, number one, you probably can't yourself. You got a day job, you've got other stuff on your mind, but you may have the expertise uh, to support the content. So, do you have somebody on your team that can get that expertise out of you in a meaningful way? Right. This is why at least one content creator on the team is becoming, a key recommendation, just because one person knowing how to generate it in the right way, in the right formats, in the right order, right? It is crucial to getting this right at the scale that you actually need. Because I think consistency is probably the most important aspect of this as you get started. But what happens when you don't use the right tools? As an example, so I have a bunch of LinkedIn lives that I've started doing, right? And in order to do that, right, I use StreamYard. But I actually started the show on March 18th. And my first recording is available on April 3rd. That's because I wanted to prove to myself that I could do it for a couple of weeks, before I upgraded this tool, before I started paying for it, right? But let's say we don't even know that's an option. We're just focused on, hey, we need to do live events and then it'll be on LinkedIn and we don't need to do anything else with it, right? We never turn that on. Now I don't have this whole library of content. And I've seen this happen. It's so sad when it does. Like, people put a lot of time and effort into their events. They either don't think about the recording or repurposing aspects, or they find reasons why it's not going to be okay to record and, all this stuff. Just understand all that effort that went into producing the content. Live attendance, in my opinion, is the last metric you should be worried about. It is so hard without a regular content, and people building that habit already. The juice is just not worth the squeeze when it comes to you're already having to compete with everything else in their life to get people to show up for something on a schedule in a world of on-demand everything. They could want so badly to come to your event, but then that day something happens, something else gets prioritized. And that's why every first question of every webinar I've ever been on is it going to be recorded? Are you going to share the slides? Right? So when you do it from the perspective of live event attendance, you often forget about this stuff, right? Because I use this tool, right, which is like $20 a month, I can click on download here, and I have access to the recording, audio only recording, and transcript. Even here, you can see at the beginning, I only have these options. When I upgraded, now I have, individual local recordings, separate audio recordings, right? So the tools that you have, and this is why you either, work with a partner to help you do this out of the gate, or you bring in somebody on your team, that has some experience with the tool set, with the mindset needed to do this on a regular basis. Because I have that, I have all these files in HubSpot now that are audio only recordings that now I can make use of this. Right. And that was the whole point of this. Like right now, this is the only way I'm able to do this, what I'm about to do. Right. So I have a lot of assets already. And so I'm going to be uploading podcast recordings, but there's going to be a lot of AI tools, generation. And you just have to be careful with that and strategic about it. But that's where we're reaching the day where, the general consensus right now is if you start with video, that's going to be the most repurposable form of the content. And you're going to be able to go, in this direction with all the different forms of content that you want, right? We're getting closer and closer. We have a ways to go, but we are moving in the direction of you can start with a white paper, an application note, an educational article, and move in the other direction, to get you. We can already get the audio here. We know we can create some video too, and that's going to keep getting better. So just like the days of being one and done with your content should be over. And you got to find a way to get into this mindset. So let's set up a podcast show. Click the button. Let's build daily with Chris Carolin. Podcast show description. Just gonna come and grab one of my events over here, one of my first ones, because I had a pretty general one back then, and we're just trying to get this off the ground. So I'm gonna go details here. Rev ups your mornings, and we're gonna, speed through this just to get the tool working and going. Obviously, all this stuff needs to have intention behind it. I do have the value of, having done this, so I've been able to figure some stuff out that, I probably come back in and edit this, but I'm going to leave that part out right now. So podcast host, set up a default podcast host for your show. Okay. Create a new host. So kind of like blog authors here. And let me see here. I will grab my bio from Hug page. Right. And let's use this one for now. Podcasts. And image. Gonna browse. And we'll just do search for this guy. Your image size may not work for distribution. Podcast platforms recommended square images. Now, I understand this for the which is a square. So maybe it's just not big enough. I care about this for the actual podcast, title cover. So I'm going to move past this. Podcast owner's email, Chris Carolin. VangerMessage.com. Artwork. Now I can generate something. I have my Let's Build Daily, ready, but we're gonna see what happens with generate here. And I'm just going to let's just try something. Yeah, let's come back and I'm gonna just put in the description. Copy. Or actually, I'm not in a rush. So I have an original prompt from ChatGPT that when I was creating the original show art, so the thing that you see on LinkedIn every day, and I'm gonna see if this does a better job. So just give me one moment to pull that up. So while this is easy to click the button, this is another spot where it looks like you can just start doing stuff in HubSpot, but the strategy, you got to understand it up front. And when you don't do that, everything's going to be harder, take longer. You're going to cut corners. And you don't want to do that. Let me see here. Over here. See if I can find it. Just one moment. Here we go. Just going to do one prompt. Here we go. And it's going to be the same thing as the description, but that's okay. Let's see what it gives me. Thank you for your patience. I think the more you can, test and iterate, learn what AI is capable of. This is actually pretty close, or it's got elements of the first piece that I ever got. But, I'd have to say, it's very unlikely that, what you want to do, similar to, an ad that you click on, we have to have, some thought, and you want people to click on it, in a sea of other podcast art. So it's hard for me to imagine ever wanting to generate with AI here. And I would almost my recommendation would just be to take that out, right? Because you're going to have a title on it. But I'd be interested to hear differently. If you, if you found use cases where maybe it's a little more abstract and you don't have to be so meticulous about the podcast art, but usually it's got the show title, might have the host name on it. So it's hard for me to imagine a point where you'd want to generate something with AI. So I'd recommend not doing that. Podcast show categories. Let's see, we're talking about business. How many do I pick here? 1 to 2 unique categories, subcategories, if you distribute it on external platforms. Business. Kind of want to click marketing, kind of don't. Education, how to. We've got, I wonder, CRM, growth, no. Coach, no. Consulting, no. All right, so we've got lots of options here in no particular order. I've got tech news, could be a thing. Interesting. Technology. Technology and business. I think that's the intersection that we're hitting on here. And please fill in the required fields to create a podcast show. Is it flagging me for this image? Must be. So we're going to crop it. And okay. And that's not going to work. So what I have at the ready, and again, this is why you have somebody, doing this for you if you can, or working with somebody. And all these things are what go into, doing a good job with the podcast, right? Doing a good job with the content execution. So I've got Canva here. I'm going to resize here. And we're going to go, this is page 5. For everybody that, thinks they're one person marketer, can just start doing all the stuff. Maybe take a second look on everything that has to go into something like this. This is why brand guidelines and brand books are important. Let's go custom size here, and we'll go. I can click on square here and continue. All right. So I'd probably want it to fill out, a little bit more, but in the interest of time, I'm just going to run with this one. We're going to, and there's an integration with Canva, which I'm choosing not to use in this case, in the interest of time, but this could be easily grabbed, from HubSpot locally. So we're going to go transparent background. And then we're going to come back to our podcast tool. We're going to replace. Going to upload. Grab that. Man, how much time the teams waste on image resizing and reformatting. Taking everything in my power not to fix this right now because it's too small. But we're going to keep moving and select this guy. All right. Be cool if this was actually a square, to represent, what's needed. I'm creating our show. Nice work. Your podcast show was created. You can now create the first podcast episode for your show. Just like that. Just jump on the mic, record a podcast, no problem. Episode name. Well, we're going to go and grab, I wonder if we upload existing audio and we upload. Nope. Browse. That's what we want. And it automatically shows us a list of audio files, not necessarily in order, but we're going to pick this one. Maybe the first one is the shortest one of them all. So it's not paying attention to my details here on the file, like it might. So like on YouTube, and this is good. Like, this might be feedback as HubSpot looks to compete with other content creation platforms, which is in a sense what it's doing here. That is a nice to have, that when I import a file into YouTube, it automatically brings in a file name or title, right? So I'm going to come over here and we'll copy this guy. And this is what I'm talking about. Like, as you start to use HubSpot more and more, and as you just put the things in HubSpot, like me having to come over to the files area of HubSpot is different, especially as you hand this process off to somebody else, than having to go in the Google Drive or go over to YouTube or, open up the spreadsheet and grab the title there, right? Just having all this stuff centralized, starts to make this stuff work a lot easier. So there are some things I'm thinking about, like, and this is where podcast is a different medium than YouTube and LinkedIn Live. And if this is always the name of the show here, right, the title of the episode is going to be just this, right? HubSpot memberships. Maybe I add the date in there as well, but probably not. We'll just get rid of that for now. Show notes describe this episode. Now there, what I want to do is I'm going to start. This is where I start thinking about how the custom objects and the CRM side of HubSpot can support this, and if there's any APIs to start connecting things. What I mean is, as I come over here and we go to sessions, and I open up, this episode record, right? Is it in here for me to easily grab, right? I think yesterday I showed, how having the YouTube description, the HubSpot blog link, right? Grabbing some things from there, which I know to already exist. So go to blog posts and then memberships. And we open this up. These are effectively show notes right now. And that's why these are in draft mode, still waiting to be cleaned up. I'm surprised. Surprised that we can't generate here, like based on the audio that was uploaded. And even if I would have used to generate audio from text, like would it have brought over? Because there's some simple prompts that could definitely turn this into some show notes, but even better, like being able to edit the prompt yourself, right? Would be amazing, so that the show notes look the same for you every time. I'm going to leave it as is right now in the interest of time. And then each show has an episode. In this case, I definitely don't have any of those ready. Describe your image. But I am going to, episode artwork is required. This is actually a shift. I remember back when I did some podcasts with, Sweetfish, they made a shift, a part of the process had never been building out, specific episode artwork. But then when you share it on social, like thumbnails, right, it shows that specific episode. So putting more effort into that, right? And again, I've been getting away with, not worrying about thumbnails and building those out. This makes me think it's no longer am I able to get away with that. So probably in my future, I'm coming here and I'm starting to develop, specific thumbnail design, not unlike, what we do for our podcast, right? One of our podcasts that we do here. And this is how, like, all these components are important. And when you do them up front, like if you stand back and you come back to here and just look at the vast amount of assets and tools involved in this, it looks like a lot. But because it is a lot, but you don't have to manage and maintain a lot of it, long term. When it gets set up properly the first time and you're just templatizing everything, that's what makes this possible. So, but for this one, I'm going to take the transcript or just the summary. Let's do the summary. And I'm going to copy that and click generate and describe my image. Style decided by AI. I think at this point, if you're going to do this something over and over, probably start giving it some direction, in the same direction, same style each time. And again, this is like, I'm going to choose to do this a templatized way in Canva. So, like here, I ran out of prompt, right? Which I just noticed now. But hey, let's build memberships. How to set up private content. I was getting so excited. There was a problem generating images. Please try again. We will try one more time and delete this little half word on the end. That's creating a seamless and effective private membership. What if we just do website? Yeah, there we go. Generate. Try one more time. A lot of these new tools, and as HubSpot continues to add, this is how we learn. I hope it's helpful to see this raw, that's why I call it unboxing. That guy's excited. Both guys are excited. And I'm looking back at the description now. Dives into the exciting new features of HubSpot memberships. It's probably driving, these reactions. So let's build daily private memberships. I can kind of see it there. And we can save to files and then insert. I think if we insert, it automatically saves to files and then tells me it may not work. I already talked to the team about this on Remix. It's like, if you're automatically doing the thing for me, you should probably give me an image that works for distribution, huh? Could be helpful. Now, publish episode. Congratulations on publishing your episode. There are a few ways you can share it with your audience. Share on HubSpot pages. Add a podcast module to your blog post, website, page, or landing page. Distribute on external platforms. Your image size may not work. Thank you for that reminder. Distribute your show on external platforms like Spotify and Apple Podcasts by following the necessary steps to link your show with these platforms. So it's already on the RSS feed. What are the necessary steps? Look here, share your podcasts on HubSpot pages. Yep, got it. We'll do that in a second. To review and manage. Okay, we'll come back to that. So, did I skip over it? Share your podcast on external platforms. After publishing, you can either share your podcast in your HubSpot pages with a podcast module. Alternatively, you can copy and paste the RSS feed to share your podcast on platforms such as Apple Podcasts. Learn how to submit. Okay, so we'll figure that out later. But I think that's an important highlight, right? Like, you still can't do everything that needs to be done to support this activity in HubSpot alone, right? So it is a tool right now to help you get the thing done that is a podcast. But if you left it here and just on the RSS, it's not going to be available on the popular places that people get their podcasts. So now it brings us to podcast episodes screen, and we can set up different shows here. Here's a direct link to our RSS feed. I don't know enough to understand if that's what you're supposed to see or not. And then we look at show settings, right? And that brings us to our settings area. And that is another way to get to podcasts. So cool. I can easily update this stuff, change it if I need to. I like this host mechanism. And then we can change show here if we had different shows. So hit the back button. And now if I click on the episode, I can edit this information and update it. Probably not something you're doing too often, because that's where, like, once it's out on Spotify and Apple, it's not easy to, it's just not a good practice to create situations where you might have to edit a lot after doing it the first time, right? Like, I've been flying through this in the interest of time, but making sure all this stuff is fine-tuned and, has the message right, has the tone right. All this stuff is important, just like any other piece of content that you would want to create and distribute, right? So again, this is a different channel. When I'm on LinkedIn Live and there's an understanding that this is a live, it's like automatically a little more relaxed in terms of expectations, from production value, from the difference between a webinar, like buttoned up presentation, and just a live conversation, right? We're leaning more towards live conversations, organic thoughts here, at least in my case, versus podcasts and other, like, pre-recorded expectations, right? It's a different channel. Having this stuff, cleaned up and, making sure there's an intentional strategy, with it is important. So definitely keep that in mind. Strategy. Generate audio again before continuing. Since you made changes to the script, you need to generate audio again. I did not make changes to the script. That's an interesting, yeah. So here, since I've got the blog open, we're going to find the podcast module. I believe it's under media. Yeah, podcast episode. Put it at the top here. Select a podcast app. This is pretty sweet. I mean, this is where you start cooking with gas. Come on. Like, and this is what you expect out of the box because it's in the content hub next to the other pages. This is really cool. Like, the amount of effort it usually takes to either design into the code, like the ability to do this and connect it to the RS feed. And I'll just say it's an effort, right? And since we did all that effort over here, now we can just pull it up like this. This makes me want to use this, even more. And if we preview, so it looks like got the play button, episode show notes. Okay. Now I wonder what this is like on SEO. Like, is this on page already? So I don't need, the rest of this stuff like I thought I did. Maybe there's some opportunity for, hey, I can just focus on the transcript here if the show notes are going to be here. Can I manage colors. If we go back, click into here, go to styles, spacing, colors, default colors, custom colors, background. Let's go advanced. Where's my color set? My branding colors. I wish I could choose from them here, or that it would default to them. All right. Usually in these color pickers, I have that. Why don't I here? HubSpot podcast /CMS /content hub theme. So I'll leave that alone for now. Default, and then spacing. Yeah, most people don't need to touch that, but it's there if you want it. And this is what that looks like. If we want to go to 100. And apply. Right, now it's got its own little space. So this is pretty cool. And this starts to, make me ask questions about like, how can this align with, HubDB, right? Because like on our site and in lots of sites, you have, your learning center that actually, let's go here to our portal, right? Learning Center, where this is all of our episodes have been, and this is driven by a HubDB with tags. So I would want, all of these. Basically, we're going digital asset management platform here. Like if I have a collection of content assets here, how easy is it to sync it up with the HubDB? Because without that, I'm having to do things like if we clone this and it didn't do anything, but I'm going to click apply anyways. Does it give me two of them? Oh, episode ID not found. Right, click into here. Okay. Yep. So we're still in beta. What I was going to say is like, if you're looking to display, all of them, and the blog is actually going to make up for this, right? If you want to display all of them together for like a selection, kind of getting back to, this kind of format, we've got some work to do, it looks like there. And we got to make sure it syncs up with the rest of, the platform that it's well integrated. It's great that I could choose that. But like this is where the cost of effort and time starts to skyrocket. Like I have 50 episodes that I want to do this with, right? So making sure it's integrated with the rest of the system and the process and the content process is already in play. If we're really managing content to this level and we're trying to systematize it and automate some of it, right? We got to make sure the stuff is integrated with the rest of the system. Well, what's promising is if there's a drop down, generally, like if there's a drop down somewhere in HubSpot, that means there's an API to be accessed somewhere, and we can start to connect the dots through the APIs. So ultimately, really cool. Very excited to do more with this. I hope this was helpful. If you've had questions about how this tool works, for me, the next step is to explore ways, how to connect it to, the little, the CRM kind of database I've created for all of these episodes. Because then we should be able to get to a point where not only have you brought all of this into a single platform, but you'll be able to connect each piece, seamlessly to the customer data, to the return on investment, to the revenue data, so that you can report on this stuff just like you can with the rest of your content plan. And if we can see that, if we can create visibility there, trusted visibility, because this is a lot of dark funnel stuff here, quote unquote, then we can do stuff like this instead of cold calling and cold emails and email blasts and relying on Google Ads and all these stuff we can measure. So that's why we do it, right? Where this is where the value comes, and this is how you build trust, by being out there as much as possible, to stay top of mind with trusted, information, expertise, value. And, this utilizing podcasts is one of the ways you're going to be able to do that. So cool. Well, thanks for joining. I hope this was helpful. As you start thinking about this toolbox here, all these nice new tools, I wonder how this ties into Remix. Find the opportunity for yourself and your team. Any subject matter experts that have been talking about a podcast, this starts to lower the bar. So find that opportunity and let's grow. Have a great day, everybody.